Finding a good deal for a PC sucks. So much research, so much specs, too much time. Well, I did all that work for you and compiled all the information I could scavenge so you can finally buy the perfect PC for your needs. This video is going to cover 8 super important sections to understand exactly how to search, spot, and buy your dream PC for Blender. Disclaimer: if you don't care about all that technical stuff, you just want a good deal, then skip to this part of the video. Starting with minimum requirements. If you didn't know, this channel is about Blender. And to use such a gorgeous program, we want a computer that is a bit better than a potato. Here's the worst setup that still works. Windows 8.1 operating system, CPU with 4 cores, and SSE 4.2 support. More on how cores work later in the video. At least 8 GB of RAM, and a GPU with 2 GB of VRAM with OpenGL 4.4. So basically, as long as your graphics card isn't over 25 years old, you're good.
Well, I'm not gonna buy a 25-year-old PC.
I know. You want a computer that will smash even the recommended specs. But how do you know what a good computer is? The perfect computer is one that allows you to work without disruption. Unfortunately, that's not such an easy task. There's 3 things you want to think about when searching for a PC: CPU, GPU, and RAM. Your CPU, Central Processing Unit, is the brain of the computer. It decides what to do, when to do it, and in what order. Single-minded, but really smart. Think of it like a teacher grading every test one by one, fast and precise. But that teacher isn't gonna paint a giant mural. But you know who will? The GPU, Graphics Processing Unit. This thing's an artist on steroids. Instead of thinking deeply, it's all about speed and repetition. Thousands of tiny workers painting pixels at the same time. Perfect for 3D art, games, and rendering. Without it, Blender would feel like sculpting clay with a spoon instead of a chisel. And then there's RAM. If the CPU is the teacher and the GPU is the artist army, RAM is the canvas they're working on. The bigger the canvas, the more room the artists have to splash paint, mix colors, and go nuts. If it's too small, everyone's crammed in a corner, erasing and redrawing just to make space. But how much space do I need? 32 GB to 64 GB is more than enough for most projects. 64 GB to 128 GB is if you're making an entire town in your viewport. Now, for our graphics card, that depends on your budget. Here's 4 tiers of GPUs for each budget. Got some cash lying around? 3,500 to 4,500 Canadian, you can get the RTX 5090, currently the best GPU on the market. The RTX 4090 is in close second. 1,500 to 2,500 dollars Canadian, you can get the RTX 5080, which has a 38% decrease in performance according to these Blender benchmarks from Puget Systems. With 1,000 to 1,500 dollars Canadian, you can take home an RTX 5070 Ti, with just a 16% decrease compared to the RTX 5080. And with 700 to 1,000 dollars, you might find an RTX 3080 Ti with a 30.5% decrease from the RTX 5070 Ti. There is good news though. Pre-built PCs roughly match the price of their GPUs. Before we go over the best deals I could find, let's talk about CPUs, because I found something out that could save you hundreds of dollars. For modeling and animation, you'll want a CPU with a single fast core. For rendering or fluid simulations, your CPU should have multiple fast cores. Seriously though, if you usually just model or animate, you do not need a bunch of cores. P.S. It's a lot more expensive. But if you insist and really do spend a lot of time with fluid simulations, then the best CPU is the AMD's Threadripper Pro 9995WX with 96 cores and support for up to 1 terabyte of RAM. Terabyte! For the rest of us who literally do anything else in Blender, Intel's Core Ultra and AMD's 9000 series processors are the best options. But more cores does not equal faster modeling or animation. Okay, what you've all been waiting for. Here's the best deals I could find for each price range. Disclaimer: information may be out of date and prices will vary. $800 to $1,600. We got the Blaze 4 Mini from Skytech, running at $800 Canadian with an Intel i3 CPU, which ranks near the bottom in most Blender benchmarks, but you'll be using your GPU anyway. An RTX 5050 and 16 GB of RAM. Keep in mind, this is the cheapest on the list, so it only gets better from here. Stepping up from the Mini, we got the Blaze 4 at $900 Canadian with an AMD Ryzen 7 7700 for their CPU, an RTX 4060 Ti GPU, and 16 GB of RAM. Same specs I have on my home computer, except I have 32 GB of RAM. This PC will work really well with most Blender projects, but due to the 16GB of RAM, in huge scenes it might slow down. From SkyTech again, we got Storm at 1050 Canadian with an AMD R7 7700 CPU, an RTX 5060 Ti GPU, and 32GB of RAM. This build will have similar performances as the Blaze 4, but with more RAM. Lastly, for our bottom tier, we got the Legion Tower 5i at roughly $1,600 Canadian with an Intel Core Ultra 5 CPU and an RTX 5060 GPU with 16GB of RAM. I added this one on the list because I didn't want them all to be from SkyTech. Okay, for our mid tier, we're starting with the Zer 3 Plus from SkyTech at $1,700. With an AMD R9 9900 and an AMD Radeon. Just kidding! AMD is much slower than NVIDIA for Blender due to the optics and CUDA APIs that Blender has. So skipping this one, let's go on to the other Zer 3 Plus at $2,000 Canadian with an AMD R7 9800 and an RTX 5070 Ti GPU with 32GB of RAM. Now we're talking. This PC will rarely slow you down in the viewport and will render quickly. Next, we got the Player 2 Prime from NZXT at $2,250 Canadian with an AMD Ryzen 7 9700 CPU with an RTX 5070 Ti GPU with 32GB of RAM. Similar performance as the Zer 3 Plus, but with way more reviews and better support. Oh, and 2 years warranty. I would say it's worth the $250 just for the reviews and better customer support. Finally, for our highest tier at $2,800 to $6,000, we're starting with the Player 3 at $2,800 Canadian with an Intel Core Ultra 7 CPU and an RTX 5080 GPU with 32GB of RAM. A beast of a machine. The Intel Core Ultra 7 ranks just a bit under the Intel i9 according to the Puget Systems CPU benchmarks for Blender. Okay, now it's getting fun. With the SkyTech 11 Vision at $2,850 Canadian with an AMD R9 9900 CPU and an RTX 5080 GPU with 64GB of RAM. This is the highest RAM so far, and they also offer a primary hard drive with 4TB of storage. With the extra RAM and storage, there isn't much limit to your creativity. Stepping up the price, NZXT has the Player 3 Prime at $3,300 Canadian with an Intel Core Ultra 9 CPU and an RTX 5080 GPU with 32GB of RAM. Again, you're spending a little bit of extra for the good reviews and customer support. Now, for the Black Knight of pre-built PCs, we have the refurbished Player 3 Prime number 8618. Don't ask me why they named it like that. Anyway, at a price of $3,700 Canadian, you got an Intel i9 CPU with an RTX 4090 GPU. And it gets better, 64GB of RAM. You're gonna have a hard time finding out what this PC can't do. For the super serious artists who push their creativity to the max, we got the Legacy 4 from SkyTech at $4,300 with an AMD R9 9950 CPU and an RTX 5090 GPU, the best in the market. And of course, 64GB of RAM. Oh yeah, and 4TB of storage. From modeling to physics simulations, this PC will do it all. Lenovo has a Legion Tower 7i at $6,800 Canadian with an Intel Core Ultra 9 CPU and an RTX 5090 GPU with 64GB of RAM and 2TB of storage. Most people do not need a computer this powerful though. Anyway, if you find some great deals for PCs at other places, comment down below and you might just help someone find their dream PC. But how do I know what the best PC for me is? The first thing to consider when getting a PC is the size. At a glance, the common terms describing case sizes are SFF for the smallest PCs out there, the Mini ITX exclusively, Mini Tower, Mini ITX motherboards, but with a bit more space for comfort and ease of installation. Micro Tower, the Micro ATX motherboards, smaller than a full-size PC but not tiny. Mid Tower, ATX and larger motherboards, the standard desktop size cases, and the Full Tower, enormous towers that can fit any motherboard. Most websites will have their dimensions listed. For more information on cases, check out PC Cases 101. The link is in the description. Where should I buy my PC? If you're unsure whether a website is safe or not, download the free website legitimacy checklist in the description. Here's the top pre-built PC sites. We got Newegg, trusted giant with huge selections and frequent deals, but watch for sketchy third-party sellers. CyberPower PC, great value and customization options, but quality control can be a hit or miss. iBuyPower, solid balance of prices and performance, though builds sometimes use lower tier parts. NZXT, clean design and good user experience, but the rental program had serious complaints. Dell/Alienware, reliable big brand with strong support, but pricier and often less upgrade friendly. Omen or Lenovo Legion, major brands with solid warranties and frequent sales, but sometimes cut corners on cooling or power supplies. Corsair, premium parts and sleek builds, but expensive and can be limited by property BIOS. Skytech, affordable and flashy gaming rigs, but mixed reviews on build quality and customer service. If you learned anything at all from this video, please share it to a friend, it would really help. And of course, comment down below where you got your PC. Shenanigans, out.